Christian Indie Writers podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey toward publication. I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write in multiple genres, including Christian dystopian fiction.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
Well, hello, ladies, and thank you everybody for tuning in today. If everybody likes what we do, please remember to like and subscribe on YouTube. And don't forget, last week was our first week on Fridays. So Fridays from now on out until we change it. Okay. Okay, so let's find out what's up with everybody. Jennifer, what did you do this week?
Well, my first what's up is I got up this morning, got ready to podcast with you guys, and realized I had no coffee in the house. Well, at least no iced coffee, which is what I do in the summer. And so I didn't even tell you ladies this yet. So can you guys see my cup? I gotta get it really close there.
Oh,
That's totally me. So I had to dig in my freezer and find some old coffee that I don't even like, but I kept there for emergencies. And today was an emergency. I actually brewed myself a cup of crappy coffee, and I filled it with lots of sugar-free caramel and lots of heavy whipping cream. And I'm sucking it down because what people don't see before that happens is that I was a mess without coffee this morning. So here we go. But this week it's been our last week before we go back to school here in the Tong household, and we're trying to squeeze every last bit of summer out of it. So when we're done here, I'm going down with my girls down to 12 Oaks Mall, which is our favorite place to shop down close to Detroit, and we're going to have some retail therapy to kind of get us in the mood for school. So what about you, Tina? What's going on with you?
Well, it was the first week of school. I homeschool, so oh my gosh.
there's an echo.
It's so weird.
It's a new feature of our streaming service.
Sorry about that. I was pulling up YouTube on my phone so that I could follow the chat, and I didn't pause it fast enough.
That's what you get for being responsible. You should be like me and just not even look over there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tina,
yeah,
did
there
you
you
have
go.
your coffee today?
I had to give up coffee.
No wonder.
Yeah, because some of the medication I'm on, when they see coffee across the crowded room, they run off together and do strange things in my lower regions, which causes me to have to run to the bathroom.
Bonding moment with our audience. Okay.
I don't know how else to put that.
That's all right.
I love coffee, but
All right.
I'm
So you're
sorry,
talking
Jennifer.
about first week of school?
yeah, it was the first week of school, so I decided we were going to do some of these subjects together. He's usually pretty independent. He's highly intelligent, and he's an accelerated learner. But he's doing physics this year, for one, and I was afraid we were going to get into a situation where he was confused or stuck, and I couldn't help him because I know nothing about physics. So we're actually doing it together, and it's been kind of fun. Really enjoying it. So other than that, he went away for a couple of days. He's still gone. I have to go pick him up in a little while. And so I kind of been like, my husband's working and I'm here all alone. I could, the possibilities.
Right. Lucky you.
But he's coming back today. Jennifer, we can't hear you.
What about now?
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
I must have hit something. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was so witty too.
Oh,
We'll just fill it in with imaginary wit. All of the things that we,
Yeah.
well, we'll do a laugh track. Can we? Do
yeah.
That would be
Okay.
fun.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
it's been pretty uneventful, just like the first week of school.
Okay, Jamie, how about you?
It's back to school season for everybody, I guess. We started our first day of our homeschool co-op. It's a weekly group that meets to do things that are difficult for families to do independently. So like gym class is kind of hard to do if you have one kid, right? I mean, it's just not as fun as getting together with a bunch of little buddies. And so we have opted to do a co-op this year that's really big and has a lot of teenagers, which is so exciting for my 15-year-old because, as you know, we ruined her life when we moved her across the country from Michigan to Florida. And so, of course, nobody will ever be able to replace our Michigan family. But it was really nice to kind of start to make some new relationships and some new friendships. And it seems like a good fit for us. So far, so good for the school year. And back to hitting the books. I also homeschool, and my children are not, I don't know. Like, I'm happy if they don't eat the glue stick. So
Stop it.
I'm not going to pretend that I have these uber Harvard track at 12 kind of children, but I do appreciate having them home with me, and the learning togetherness part of it is fun. Apparently, my son stood up in public speaking class and told everybody how he wants to travel to Poland because he's so interested in World War II, and so things like that. So they really are, ITs, but they really are smart kids, and they do have passions I'm excited to follow with them this year. So that's what's going on with us.
Yeah. Your kids are so talented in so many ways. All of your kids are, really. Okay, so let me talk about what I've been doing. I spent the last week in North Carolina on a genealogy trail, and I met with some family that I just haven't seen. Well, a couple that I have never met before, and a few that I've met in the past and haven't seen in so long. And it was so great. We had so many great reunions, and I got a lot of great pictures, and I got to go to a couple old home sites that I hadn't been to before with some people. We were driving up mountainsides. They're all from the western side of North Carolina in the mountains. And a couple of the cemeteries we went to were literally no roads. You were 4x4ing through trees and things to get to them, and because they were old and overgrown and forgotten about and all that. But anyway, oh my word, I have so many story ideas, including the sprint that we did this morning.
Awesome.
Ooh,
Yeah, my little new chunk here today on my Nancy Drews.
I saw that.
My grandfather's schoolhouse, I saw for the first time a couple years ago when I went down there. And okay, so there's a tree growing inside of it. So it hasn't been used for a long time. But this year, I was so sad to see that it's just going to fall down. The people whose property it's on don't have any interest in repairing it. They're not family anymore. They've married in, and all the family has died. And one of the walls has actually separated on both sides, and it's going to come down any day. Literally, tree limbs are holding it up. And so anyway, I was able to take a little piece of it. And, I'm going to actually see if there's any way I can find a way to have that moved or restored in some way by a society down there. But anyway, so that's what I've been doing this last week. I've not done much writing, but we'll talk about that at the end.
That's
Robin
really
says
neat.
that she's been vehicle shopping all over. How did she put it? She drove all over the
that's fun.
province looking for a new truck. Yeah, I hate vehicle shopping.
Oh, I love it.
love vehicle shopping.
Yeah.
It's like the hunt. Like, I don't mind doing the online part. Like, I love that hunt of that. But then actually going out and like looking at vehicles and whatever, I'm just like, I just tell my husband, just pick one and make sure I'll like it.
Yeah.
Which I know is like the
Just
worst
pick
place.
the right one. That's all.
Just the right one. Exactly. Yeah. And why don't I have coffee, honey?
Right.
While we are airing our grievances.
Yes.
See, the funny thing is no one was with us before the podcast started, so they don't get how funny that was. So anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, let's get on to our thing, because the last couple of weeks I have been learning a lot. I've been a student, and this one is something I'm super interested in. And it is on our Building Our Platform series, newsletters. Why have one? What do you put in one? Everything. So let's get started. So who can tell me what is a newsletter?
Well, a newsletter is, I mean, if you think about it like a newspaper or periodical magazine, just kind of an update from an author to readers who are ideally customers of yours, people who buy your books and enjoy them. Hopefully your list is cultivated from people that you know are interested in what you're doing as a writer.
Okay. How would you separate a newsletter from, say, just like an ad? Or is there anything that you need to put in a newsletter to say this is a newsletter?
I don't think so. I mean, like, everybody's newsletter is going to be a little bit more like kind of tailored to them. And we're going to talk about that throughout this series. But I mean, the difference between this and an ad is you own this. Like, this is you have cultivated this list of people that have signed up for your newsletter, and it belongs to you. So, and again, we'll talk about that a little bit later too. So.
Okay. Right? Is there a certain length it needs to be, or
No, I mean, it depends, I
all right.
guess.
Well, let me be
What
more
is
specific. Okay, so I edit the newsletter for my historical society. And so we have certain things. We have our curators report, we have our directors report, we have tidbits from old newspapers, that sort of thing. So we have those things every month in there. So do you have different sections? I mean, is there a template for doing a newsletter?
Well,
Well, I
we're going to
think,
be talking in a
yeah.
future episode
Oh,
specifically on what to put in your
oh, all
email.
right.
So,
Okay.
we probably should start off saying that this is going to be a series. There's so much that
Mhm.
that is about newsletters that we decide that we should probably split it up into parts. So this is going to be kind of the basics of newsletters
Mhm.
for people that have never had one, and then next week our episode is specifically on what do you I think next week is what do you put in it. I guess
Okay.
I don't have the
All
thing
right.
open.
So
So
then, tell me, I've got a lot of stuff on my plate, like everybody. So do I have to have one? Why? Why do I want to do a newsletter for my writing?
Well, I think the most important thing Jennifer sort of touched on is the ownership of that information. A lot of people very heavily rely on, say Amazon to keep track of who's interested in what they write. You can click follow the author or something if you buy their book, but then that is information Amazon owns. It is not anything that you could ever access if something should happen to these big industry giants that we've become reliant upon to do some of the networking for us. So I think ownership of those contacts is what is a very key component of this, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and also it's the personal interaction with your readers, which is something that traditional published authors haven't had. I think that they're starting to do that a little bit more and have their own email lists and stuff. But to have personal access to your readers, I think is invaluable.
we have a listener who is traditionally published with a like a small press, and after our last week's episode, she reached out to me on Twitter, and we had a nice long chat about newsletters and your there's lots of things we're going to be talking about. And so I told her that too. I said, you need to tune in because we're going to be talking about this over the next few weeks. But she is, again, traditionally published, but so she hadn't started with a newsletter, but she's starting to think that way, that she needs to do that. And I think if you are traditionally published, you for sure need to have a newsletter. This isn't something just for indie publishers, published authors, because just because you're traditionally published with the current publisher you're with doesn't mean that your next book you're not going to publish with someone else. There are a lot of traditionally published authors that are with many different publishing houses depending on their book. So you want to be able to be in control of how you of your readers, because the reader you have at this publisher will be the same reader you have at a different publisher, and the reader you have at this publisher will be the same reader you have if you independently publish something. So again, it's all about ownership, and
Well,
Facebook is constantly changing. You don't want to trust Facebook. Amazon doesn't give you their information, so you can't trust them. So this is something you own. Go
I
ahead.
think it's important to talk about how great it is that because the publishing industry has changed so much, that we actually would have access to this if we should sign. I mean, we talk about independent all the time, but if you end up doing something that's a hybrid situation, I mean, I can only imagine back in the day that the contacts of potential readers would be something that would be safeguarded by the big publishing house. They wouldn't want the author to be able to go directly to the readership. So it's kind of neat in a way that we are expected to help promote, even if we do sign, because then we have access to that information, which they may have tried to keep under lock and key once upon a time. I think that's really a benefit to the author.
Okay.
Plus, let's
All
face
right.
it, the statistics still show that email is king. Email still works. Like you can complain about open rates or whatever, but even at my right now, I get about a 40% open rate, which is really good. So not 60% are not opening my emails, but those 30% are. So it's still working better than most forms of getting your information out there. Sorry, Rhonda.
All right. No, you're fine. Okay. So all right. So last week we talked about Facebook pages and all that. So is this the very next step, or
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of talking about like in what order, right? Like, where do you put this? So we're talking about building a platform, and if we're talking about bricks putting into place, like what would you have to have put down first.
Right. Yes, that is my question. Is this something I need to? So once I get my Facebook page set up, is this the next thing that I do? I mean, where do I get the email addresses from?
Yeah, very good. Well, I think before you do anything, you have to have a website, because the website would kind of serve as, a landing page. Wouldn't you say that that's true, Tina?
Yes, definitely. You have to have a website, and you have to have an email address that you're going to use, and you have to have some sort of email management system.
Yeah, and because you don't want to be giving out like your personal email. Think about the difference between a company that has a personal cell phone number for Joe's Heating and Cooling versus Joe's Heating and Cooling having a business line that's always answered, "Hello, Joe's Heating and Cooling." So even if you have your email set up to where it goes to jamie@jrnicholsonline.com, but that it then has a little mechanism that sends it right to your personal email, that's fine. But you always want to have a professional presence and have a business email.
Right. And if you don't have a website, then you have to like work around having a landing page, which we were going to talk about that as well when we talk about funneling people in and how the email actually works. But as far as like the order, I know last week I talked a little bit about how I did my Facebook group first, and then from there I started building my newsletter. That might be what you want to do if you're not published. If you're already published, or you have something that you can provide for free as your reader magnet, again, going to be another episode. We're going to have a whole episode on reader magnets. But I think, so for me, it's like you have to have the website first. And then the next thing is you got to have some sort of reader magnet. And we'll talk about that, because it does not have to be, you don't have to worry about like giving away an 80,000 word novel. You can if you want, but you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to wait. But you have to have some sort of reader magnet. And then I would say then you can do your newsletter. It's up to you whether you want to do Facebook first or but I would say you probably can get your other social media platforms in place and start working them. There's a lot of people on Twitter and Instagram and that aren't published yet, but are starting to build their platforms by just sharing things that are related to their writing. So
Okay. All right. Well, this next thing is something that I really know zero about. I'll tell you, recently when we were in North Carolina, I gave someone my email address, and my daughter said, Hotmail. Mom, how old are you? Hotmail is so out of date. Okay,
Yeah.
so what do I do about that? Do I look unprofessional if I have a Hotmail address?
I don't know. That's new to me too.
I've heard that also. Here's the thing. There's a little bit of a talk about this as far as when I tried to set up my email management service. Some require that you have not something that is a free email service. Jen and Tina had a different experience, right? You guys use a service that allows you to use Gmail or Hotmail as your primary mailing address.
Tina was able to. I checked with my email provider, and they will accept a Gmail, but I have my email address that's attached to my website. That's what
So
I
what
use.
do you think about that, Jennifer? Would you not want to say Jennifer Carltong@hotmail.com or something? Do you like it being your website address as the .com? Do you know what I mean?
It's kind of like a business card. Do you want to scribble down your name and phone number on a piece of paper and give it to someone, or do you want to have a business card that makes you look like a legitimate professional? That's how I feel about email addresses. My email address is, I made it personal. It's jen@jennifercarltong.com. So people immediately see it and realize I have a website. I am serious. I don't have to tell them I have a website. They can tell because I have this email address. And it is something that you can set up through the person that does your website. Speaking of websites, though, don't freak out if you don't have one and you don't have the money for one. We did an episode, I think it was episode 3, so way back, Jamie and I did, on how to do a free website. So go and check that out. And it's very simple to do a free WordPress website. We probably should do one a little bit more updated, that if you want to put some money out and do a for paid one, but that will be
I was just going to say, I mean, as you're talking about getting a business email, I was kind of looking around because I had forgotten that I had a business email. It's kind of a long story, but the bottom line is you don't have to spend the money. Okay. So if you're little mama there with 4 kids, 3 and under, and dad's already working 2 jobs, and you don't need to go to him and say, well, now I need to subscribe to this email, blah, 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 so I can have a professional email. Like, put that kind of down the road is just something I want to throw out there, because right now saying, author name at gmail.com is going to serve you just fine. I mean, that's something that you can look forward to upgrading in the future.
Agreed. But Robin on chat made a good point. She said, and your Hotmail account could be shut down.
Okay.
And also, because think of, just like we were talking about with Facebook and everything else, you want to be in ownership of it. She also said that it won't be open, it'll go to spam. That's very true. If you use, that's something we talked about in our outline, is that if you try to not use an email management service and just go through your own personal, that chances are it's going to go to spam, because you're sending out so many emails from one email account, they're just going to see it as spam. So
Okay.
Okay.
Can you define an email management service?
Yeah, because I think we're kind of
Get out of line.
we're kind of jumping around, because we're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about me logging into my Hotmail and just getting all of the email addresses that I know of people who could read my book, and composing an email from my Hotmail account to go out to everybody who I know who might want to read my book. So instead of doing that, that's what's going to get you marked as a spammer, et cetera, et cetera. We're talking about these things called email services, which do what for you, Jennifer?
Well, let's talk about, so they do lots of things for you, and there's reasons why you should use them. First of all, because of spam. The same thing that Robin pointed out is that if you use Gmail, Hotmail, any of those, your chances are whatever you send out is going to get put directly into a spam folder, and the people you're sending it to aren't even going to see it. Also, you can get your account shut down if you send out too many emails like that. Also, with an email management system, what they will do is they do everything for you. You type in your newsletter, you have, your subscribers on there, and they pretty much do everything for you. All the tracking, they do, it's nice software where you can make it look pretty, and it's also a safe way to distribute your reader magnet. So we're going to talk about that again, so further into it. So
Right, because
ultimately,
people definitely don't like to get an email that has an attachment. If you're using an email management system, it would be sending them the opportunity to download your magnet as a safe email, which the person who's looking at the email won't feel a little bit weird about downloading an attachment that could be your book or whatever you're giving out as a magnet.
exactly.
Okay.
So a management system basically is, and they're free to begin with, so that's great. But they're a system to where you can keep track of all of your subscribers. You can send your newsletters through there and keep track of open rates. You can keep track of unsubscribes, and it makes life very, very easy for you, as opposed to if you try doing everything manually yourself.
Okay. So do they also give me the mailing list?
They do not. Again, we're going to talk about that in a future, how to get
Okay.
subscribers. So, all right. So can we talk about the different management systems? Because I know Tina and I use different ones. So does Jamie. We use 3 different ones. So maybe we should mention that a bit for people.
Yeah, Tina, why don't you go?
Okay, I use MailChimp, and MailChimp is free up to 1,000 subscribers, I think. I was looking at a bunch of different ones, and I think that's generally the rule. I think maybe it's a little bit more for MailerLite. I think it's 2,500, up to 2,500. So usually
it's the opposite. I think you get more, but I don't know. We'll have to, yeah.
Yeah, I could have that messed up. But anyway, it's free up to it's free up to at least 1,000 subscribers, if not more. And in my eyes, if I have 1,000 subscribers, chances are they're probably buying my book, and I can afford to pay for it after that. So I think that's a really kind of a cool deal. So what I do is when you go to my website and you sign up for my mailing list, then MailChimp keeps you on the list. And if I send something out, you get sent to you. If you want, and I have a automation series in there where I wrote a series of stories that are going to go into one book that you can get. And it's sends one out a week for me. So I don't have to think about that. I don't have to go in there every day and see if I have a new subscriber. So Yeah, and I use MailChimp, and it's pretty user friendly, and I have no complaints.
I just decided to like revisit the whole idea of possibly having a mailing list. I'm not a super huge fan of all of the whole, like, this is the part of indie publishing that makes me want to hang up my headphones, but whatever. So I have been revisiting the idea of having a mailing list. And so I did kind of look around, and I don't even know why. I mean, there's MailerLite, there's MailChimp, whatever. I was reading, compare this and compare that. And so I found something called MooSend. I guess maybe God just needed me to be doing one that no one else was doing. I don't know, because it's a similar
Probably.
offer. They all pretty much offer you a similar situation. If you're getting something that's making you pay right away, I'm getting my first 1,000 subscribers. They'll do everything free for me as well. So I think as long as you're using something that has a good reputation and that you're comfortable with the terms that you're agreeing to, that you would be willing to start paying once you have that many subscribers. Probably you don't want to sign up for anything that's asking you for a credit card to have on file or something like that, unless you're super comfortable. And again, people who you trust that say, oh, you're not going to be billed until, So use normal, ordinary common sense when you're picking one, and then look at some websites that compare the pros and cons of each before you make your choice. And so, Jen, did you want to plug MailerLite?
Yeah, I chose MailerLite because, like Jamie said, I did a bunch of research. We talked about Facebook groups, so how about having your own, and about being in writer groups, and a ton of writer groups. And I reached out to people and asked them, and I made the choice for MailerLite because my goal is I'm doing this, and I plan on getting a lot of subscribers and selling a lot of books. And so when I look at it, even though I get less free subscribers for MailerLite, in the long run, it will be cheaper for me. And I didn't want to have to hassle of switching over, which you can switch over. It's not that big of a deal, but that's one less thing I wanted to worry about. So I'm happy with MailerLite. I will use it for the podcast as well, mostly because I made that decision for us, I guess. I don't know, because I liked MailerLite. We just kind of went with it. And but again, this is something that you have to go and do your research. We are not affiliated with any of them other than the fact that we use them. So take that with a grain of salt, but it's not hard to do the research, just to figure things out and look at things and talk to other people that you're in groups with. Reach out to us and ask us specific questions if you want.
Except
Robin-
for me, because I barely even have started setting mine up. But as the future goes on, I can let you all know if I run into any problems or if I'm sad about my choice. So,
And
Right.
Robin's asking you to repeat the name of the company you're using.
MooSend, moo like a cow. In fact, a cow is their little logo. So MooSend, SEND. And they do require you to have a business email. They will not send email on behalf of a Hotmail, a Gmail, or any of the ones that are free, because they're concerned about their emails that they're sending being flagged as spam. But I believe that Tina and Jen can use. So you may not want to do MooSend if you're wanting to use a Hotmail or a free email address.
And all three of ours are free to begin with, and
Mhm.
probably for until you really need to pay for it, until you're making money. Robin also says, Rhonda, do you get the email addresses and information of your subscribers in case you want to change? I don't think you have subscribers yet, do you, Rhonda?
No, I haven't started any of that at all.
Okay.
I haven't tried any of that. I've got my mom's email address.
Well, this is great. I mean, because, all right, so we're kind of at the end of what we're going to talk about today as far as this, because next week we're going to be talking about autoresponders. What is that?
Yeah,
and
all the cool tricks.
writing the sequence. Like, now that you've so you have a week to decide which email provider you want to try, or email management system you want to try to go with. And then next week we're going to kind of start talking about what do you do with it, and how do you what do you start, because before you even go out and try to get subscribers, you should have your sequence and everything written. I had mine written a year before I even started, so just because it was just sitting there in a Microsoft Word document because I kept playing around with it. And so we're going to talk about that next week. So I think, Rhonda, that we should challenge you to decide which one you want to go with and be all set up so we can start your sequence next week.
Yeah, and any of our listeners who don't have a website yet, that would also be a first place. Because again, what's going to happen is, so MooSend or wherever is going to hopefully link up with your website, and you will be able to get people to subscribe, and it all has to kind of link together. So it's just somewhere to send people. Like, you don't send them to the email. Like you don't send them to MailChimp to sign up for your email. You send them to your website and they put their email address in there. So get your website first and then pick out your email management service, which Rhonda already has the website.
I know.
I
wish we had or we have a friend that helped us all with our websites, and she's amazing.
She's so awesome.
We love her. We love her. But she doesn't want to do this for a living anymore. And I wish she did, because I would love to send people to her, because she's so great. And she's a Christian as well. And we know that she just loves on people so much, because I've had other like tech people that like, you feel like you're putting them out, and never her. She's always like, just wants to like, and I know she loves us to begin with, but I would love to be able to, I wish we could just get her to do
I
that,
know. I feel like when I reach out to her, she's like, well, currently, the equivalent of like, my house is on fire right now, but let me put down this bucket of water and then I'll get right back with you. And I'm like, really? It's not an emergency. And she just scrambles to help me. She's amazing. We love her.
We love Vicky.
She is amazing.
So maybe if we can convince Vicky to like re-energize that part of her like career, maybe we can like start giving her some business. But website.
She really did enjoy it when she did it.
She did. Yeah. But like with every other business, when you have to be service for people, like some people can be jerks, and she's so kind-hearted that, it's hard. So anyway, so that's your goal next week. You could just skip accountability corner if you want.
Okay.
No, I'm
okay.
kidding.
All right. No, you already said it. You can't take it back. Okay. But I'll tell you the power of a logo, because Jamie mentioned that one that she's talking about, Moo whatever, has a cow logo, and so that's the first place I'm going to check out specifically to see the logo. So that's a little hint for everybody out there.
It's funny, we're using this. I don't even know what it's called, but I'm calling it Duckstream because they have a little duck up in the corner. What is this thing called that we're using? StreamYard. Okay, yeah, because the Be Live, we were having too many tech issues. I don't even know, but anyway, so we're trying StreamYard, and they have a little duck. So yeah, duck and a cow. These people
have a monkey.
Choices.
Mailer Lite is sophisticated. They have some.
Just like me.
Not me.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on so we can get to our feeding of the backs, which is my favorite part.
Yeah, I love it.
So, so anyway, this is feedback time. What we do is we take a 15-minute sprint before we go on, and we've got 5 words. We share them on Twitter, and we'd love to know if anybody else has done the sprint with us today. But let's get started with our, let's see. Jamie, why don't you go first today?
All right. We had 15 minutes to write a story using the following words: bland, goalkeeper, which I thought was goat keeper when I first saw it. And I was like, I do not know how I'm going to write a story.
And I was like, that would be a better story.
Yes.
Photograph, minute, and assault. And all of those have been tweeted out on the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, like Twitter feed. So you can take 15 minutes and write yours if you want, and then let us know that you did. All right, here's mine. Remember, I only had 15 minutes. The soup was bland. Sarah added salt, stirred, and retasted. Better, but not perfect. Her brows came together as she glanced at the clock and realized her boys would come banging through the kitchen door at any minute, ready to launch a full assault on the lunch she was preparing for them. She grabbed a can of spiced tomatoes from the pantry and smiled as she imagined the reaction to the addition. "It's spicy," Jeremy, her middle child, would be the first to notice and comment. "It's not that spicy," Big Brother Peter would say. Brian, the baby, would insist the soup was not at all spicy, even as his face turned red and he finished his glass of milk, which Sarah would silently refill, thereby earning a look of sincere thankfulness as he downed half of the new portion. Her baby was growing fast, she thought, for not the first time that week. He'd been placed on the JV team at the first practice, moved up from the 12 and under due to a need for more players on the advanced team, and he had sacrificed the prized position of goalkeeper in order to play up. The maturity he demonstrated when making the decision, which he'd been forced to make in her absence and without her counsel, had made Sarah proud, but also a little sad. "Mom!" It was Peter's voice that called to her from the mudroom, and she heard the sounds of him clomping through on his way to the kitchen. "Boy, you know better. Get yourself back in there and get them stinky workout clothes into the washer." "Mom, no, I've got to tell you, something awful's happened." Sarah's hand went to her heart. "The boys okay?" Her oldest, completely capable of understanding and interpreting his mother's shorthand way of speaking from way back, sent his own right back to her. Pete and Jer are fine. It's Benny Jackson. What happened to him? Mom, he's committed suicide. Oh, my word, poor Betty. Sarah immediately recalled a school photograph of the young boy seated on a stool with his mother in front of the backdrop of the annual Mother-Son dance. She recalled every interaction she'd had with the boy. Her heart seemed to break as hard as though the tragedy were hers. Sarah began shaking and sat herself down in one of the chairs at the table. The other boys came clamoring in. Did you tell her? I wanted to tell her. Mom, isn't it terrible? Sarah said nothing, but threw her arms out wide and waggled her fingers to call her little chicks and gather them under her wing.
Oh my word. That was so good.
She's still talking, but we can't hear her.
Who is?
Jamie.
I am?
No,
She's not.
she must be lagging.
Oh, okay.
Oh, golly. Wow. So I totally cannot follow that, and you'll understand why
I
later.
know.
But
Oh, okay.
Jamie, so that was beautiful, and
Yeah.
now I feel like I just need to be in that group hug right now, and I want to know more about this whole situation, and
hmm
yeah. So what?
This was not a true story, right?
No.
Oh, okay. That
I
makes
know
me
that
feel
it
a
was
little better, but not much.
I know it was a sprint, but like, is there some like what made you like go that direction? Do you know? Just the words took you there?
No. I decided I needed a shattering moment for us to actually be a story.
I see.
Well, you did it.
That's what you meant before we started when you said that you had to make a decision.
No, I'm not even
No?
sure if I want to talk about what the decision was live because I think it reveals a part of my personality that's a little strange. But I wanted there to be more, a little bit more that kind of turned things into a way, but then it would take the poignancy of the subject matter and kind of diminish that. And so I didn't. It would almost kind of be like turning a corner and suddenly turning into a comedy, even though that's not what I'm talking about. But again, It's something I'd rather talk to you ladies about once we aren't live anymore, and then you'll understand what I'm saying. But yeah, but I've kind of been unhappy when I've done these sprints and I haven't felt like I've written a story. So I'm really trying to focus more on doing that. And so that's why I decided to put a shattering moment in there.
I always feel unhappy because mine are generally not a whole story, but I don't have time to sit down and finish it, and I want to. Like I have so many little mini stories dangling out there, which like this one here is as well. So we'll see what you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and go. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Because mine is not at all poignant. Mine is well, you'll see. Jamie stared at the photograph of the goalkeeper. This was to be her latest assignment, to interview this guy. When her boss at the Detroit Free Press said he was sending her to Ireland for this assignment, she had misheard him. She thought he had said she was interviewing a goat keeper. She thought she was coming to a rural part of the world to meet a farmer of livestock. But as she stared at the picture, she realized how wrong she had been. This was not some bland assignment to give her a little break from the high-paced world of Detroit. This was not some rural part of the world. She was in a major bustling city, and she was about to interview some hunky athlete she knew nothing about. She would have to work quickly to get in as much research as possible before she arrived at the interview. She just hoped the driver they sent to pick her up at the airport wasn't a chatty type. "Are you Jamie?" a male voice asked. Jamie sighed. "I wish I weren't," she said, then looked up at from the picture at the man who addressed her, expecting to find some little Irish man who would serve as her driver. The minute she did, she realized her mistake. This wasn't some Uber dude, and the assault on her senses caused by the blazing blue eyes that smiled down on her was unnerving. Why was this famous footballer acting as driver? "Hi," Blue Eyes said. "I'm Kieran." 3, 2, 1.
I so badly want her to ask him, does he know anything about certain breed of goats?
I know, right? I totally get like this is you. This character is you, Jamie. Like I get totally like you're gonna be like completely sarcastic and feeling like like whatever. Like this guy, like it's just gonna be so great. Like why is? Oh, and I would like to point out, but Maria's not here. I almost called him a soccer player, and I didn't.
Yay.
I'm a footballer, even though everything in my senses said he's not a Detroit Lion, so it's not a footballer. But
Someday we're going to have to talk about rules like that because, you know, when I'm writing, sometimes I would rather write MOULT instead of MLT.
Mhm.
And just because I'm American, do I have to never use a
No.
British spelling? Do you know what I mean? Like, I really want to know what the rule is there.
There
Jamie,
are
in your theater, have you never played a British part? Have you never? I don't see why it would be any different.
Oh, well, because I like the spellings like color with a U. Like, I just like, to me, it's satisfying and appealing. It has nothing to do with how I would, you know what I mean? I don't know. Just
There are
when I
two-
write it,
you're-
it looks better to me.
You're an indie author. I don't think there are any rules.
That's true.
All
That's
right, so I
right.
have two things to say. There. First of all, there are two words that I refuse to spell the American way. Gray, I always spell GREY, because we spell with an A, and I just think it looks wrong. And the other word is blonde. We don't put an E at the end, and I always put an E at the end when I talk about blonde hair. And my software always tags it as being incorrect, but no one has ever called me out on it that have read my books because we see those two words enough that way. However, the second thing I want to say was I've listened to different podcasts from people like British writers that write in American scenes and vice versa, Americans that write in a British scenes, and people will call you out like for certain things. For example, if you say trunk, but you mean that they're in England, people that are British will call you out and say, no, that's what do they call it?
Boot.
The boot. Thank you. And things like that. Or if you call it a boot here, Americans. So I guess it just depends. I think like what Tina said, it's all about, you're an indie writer, whatever you want to do, just be prepared that there might be people that yell at you in reviews.
I love people yelling at me.
Yeah. All right.
Very good job, Jennifer. It was really
Yes,
fun.
very good. Very good.
Yeah, Robin says, and I agree with this, if your story is set in the UK and your characters from the UK, use the UK spelling. She also said that blonde equals female with an E equals female, without equals male.
Wow, I did not know that.
That's probably true. I just use an E all the time. Oh, well. Sorry, readers.
All right, Tina, what do you have for us?
Okay, I failed miserably in using all the words because I got stuck on one word, and that's the only word I wrote about. So,
hopefully it's not goat keeper.
no, it's not.
And it better not have the shark song in it either.
Am I the only
Trust me.
goatkeeper today?
Yeah.
Yes.
You are the only
I
goatkeeper.
used 6 of the words then, just saying.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, look at the precious little angel. I am in love, Mrs. Forsher said, in one of those sing-songy voices you use when talking to babies. Ophelia never could figure out what the purpose of this was and vowed never to speak to her offspring in such a way. She smiled at the woman, while secretly wishing she would take her swishing skirt and tightly pinned hair and go bother some other shut-in. What is his name? Mrs. Forsher said, raising an inquisitive eyebrow at Ophelia. Bland, replied Ophelia. Yes, well, we can't all have exotic names like yours. There is something to be said for a sturdy, useful name, but you never said what his name was. Bland. His name is Bland, Ophelia said.
That's awesome.
Failing to hold in the exasperated sigh that escaped her mouth. What kind of name is that? Mrs. Forsher said. Ophelia wasn't sure if the look on the woman's face was disapproval of her etiquette or of the name itself. It was his grandfather's name, mumbled Ophelia, wondering if she would now spend the rest of her life explaining the origin of her son's name. Well, it is certainly original, in a manner of speaking. Yes, Ophelia disguised another sigh with a long and over-exaggerated yawn. Oh my, said Ophelia, I hadn't realized how tired I am. I really should rest while the baby is. I'd show you out, but I'm off my feet for at least another week. Doctor's orders. Of course, dear, Mrs. Forsher said as she picked up her handbag and gloves. You rest, and I will stop by and see how you are in a few days. The ladies of the church have set up a casserole schedule, so don't you worry about that husband of yours going hungry. Mrs. Forsher smiled at Ophelia, but Ophelia noticed the pinched look on the woman's face. She had been rude, and Mrs. Forsher was too gracious to say so. Ophelia knew she should feel sorry, but she didn't. What did you expect when you visit a woman who has just been through the most hellish experience of her life? Then on top of that, to be left alone with this creature that had no interest in anything other than screaming and eating. Ophelia let her eyes droop closed. Some sleep would be so nice, and when she woke, she would talk to Henry about getting a nurse for the baby as soon as possible. Just as the bliss of drowsing was about to take over, a loud wail pierced the air.
That
What a
was
great way to end it.
Good.
Yes.
Did you name her Ophelia in any sort of Hamlet-esque sort of a way? A nod
No, I
there
was just
to-
looking for a name that was the opposite of bland.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
Love
Which
that
so
name.
it does work, just so you know. So should you ever publish this, people will wonder if
I
if
should
Ophelia
probably
is-
say that the reason that I got laser
Focus.
what am I trying to focused on that word? That is my son James's middle name.
Really?
Ophelia?
No,
Oh.
Bland. I'm gonna tell him you said that.
Okay.
His middle name
why?
is Bland, and it was his grandfather's name. So
I really like it now that I've heard it in the
Yeah.
context of this story. And especially when she's like, I'm never talking to my kid in a baby voice. And so when you start the story, I feel like she's a teenager who's years away from having a child. And then as it becomes clear that no, she's making this decision now for this child, like that story works on so many levels. It's very rich. I love it.
Yeah.
thank you.
Robin says, no, not casserole. Okay.
I know you almost feel like that's what Ophelia is thinking too. Like,
Yeah, she was,
what?
but I didn't have time to get to that.
Yeah, but you just know because you did such
Mhm.
a good job of making her alive and real to us. You know that this woman is like, I am not eating anything that comes from those pinch-lipped, swishy skirt ladies. It's really good.
Thanks.
That's funny. That was great. Okay, well, Tina, I'll tell you that on the way home yesterday, I went through this corner of a county. It was called Bland County. And
Oh.
I'd never heard of that in North Carolina before.
Wow.
And so I thought about it for hours. Literally, it was a 12-hour drive. Thought about it for hours on the way home because it is anything but bland. So I was thinking about like the history of the name and all that because these huge mountains just covered with waterfalls and trees and it just beautiful rocks and Bland County is just so that stuck with me too. So that's so funny that you have a son named.
I would bet that it's based on a last name.
It's got to be a surname. It's got to be.
Because it's so weird that you brought that up because as I was writing my story and I typed Irish by accident, not capitalized, I had to go back and fix it. And I immediately thought of the road Irish Road, which is near where we all live. Well, Jamie
Yes.
used to live here.
Named for
And-
Burr Irish.
Yes, it's a there used to be the Irish farm, and it was like
Yep.
my dad grew up on a farm out towards Millington, kind of Millington, Otisville area, and the Irish farm was out that way, Otisville-ish area, and so they knew each other. Like my dad, dad growing up, like the roads were named after what farm was on them way back in the day, and so I'm guessing the county because I know people with the last name Bland, so it's
Mhm.
just. This is totally up your alley, Rhonda.
I know,
all
yeah,
the history of all
absolutely.
that kind of stuff. It's so it's
Definitely.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah. Like when you talk to a really old person, they'll say, well, that was up on the Hill Road or that was on the Irish Road or the whatever, because it was named after something like what you're saying. And down there, everybody still says the Abington Road or the Caldwell Road, whatever. So
On the subject of unusual names, my husband's name is Stash, Stash, which some people get it and they read his name, they're like, oh, Polish, because of his heritage and everything. And so it's just kind of funny because if you want to avoid a child's possibility of like, well, I don't like my first name, I'm going to use my second name. So you name them Stash, Bland, last name. And then they're stuck using a name. And people be like, what? What is your name? You know what I mean? Anyway.
I've known people named Stash before, but their first name was actually Stanley or a derivative of Stanley.
Like
which is longer.
Stanislaus or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So he's the first Stash I've ever known that was like just Stash. So I think
When
it's
we
a
were
good name.
dating, he was like, my name is in the dictionary. I'm like, oh, it is not. Because the way I pronounce it, you would think it's spelled STOS because I say Stash, right? And so, yeah, lo and behold, I went to the dictionary and there was STASH and he just was smirking.
I think it's funny that when you said,
And then he proposed. No, just
Oh.
kidding.
I think it's funny when you said that how you pronounce it, like it's totally an accent thing. Because if you were on the East Coast, they would say Stosh if it was an O. And like so people are
Mhm.
listening to you going, no, that's totally an A. Like
Yeah, and in
depending
the
on where you're
South,
from.
you say, my name is Stash. And they say Stash. And my husband just goes, yep.
oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
right.
Rhonda, you
Well-
can't get away from us. It's your turn.
All right. Well, I also used bland as a word right at the very beginning.
Is that the only
Oh.
word?
No, I think I got all the words in. You guys can check if you want.
Yay.
Wait, you
All right.
used it as a word or a name?
A name.
Okay.
Yeah, I did say word. I did use it as a word and a name.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
Bland County? I never heard tell of that one. The lady's voice came from behind the counter in response to Nick's question. I must be mistaken. Maybe I heard her wrong, he said, turning to me and shrugging. I stepped up to the counter so I could see who he was talking to. The tall display of photographed postcards stood on the edge of the counter, standing there like a goalkeeper, protecting her from conversation with her customers.
Nice.
She didn't seem any more interested in helping Nick find the place he was looking for than she was in shooing away the large fly buzzing in the corner of the window near her shoulder. The observation was barely formed in my mind when suddenly, and faster than I ever imagined she could move, she laid an assault on that poor fly. It was swatted faster than a lightning bug can twinkle in the summer sky. She looked back to Nick as if to warn him off of asking her any more unnecessary questions. She saw me for the first time standing there. Her jaw worked for a moment, trying to form words, but before they came, her tan leather cheeks turned gray. Her voice squeaked something that sounded like, Sally Bell? And lifted her skinny arm, but before its bony finger formed a full point at me, she'd collapsed on the floor. The end.
No,
What?
that can't be the end.
Well, it's not the end forever, but for today, it's the end. So I woke up
Intrigue.
So I woke up this morning forming this story in my mind. And I thought, can I use this for the sprint? But obviously I didn't have any of the words. And so the actual story I was thinking of this morning, I didn't use, but this is definitely an intro to it. So
That's
I'm so excited.
terrific.
Yeah.
I just have like 7 more stories to write before I can write this one. But
I love
story.
the goalkeeper, the use of goalkeeper.
Mhm.
Really
Thank you.
nice. Like, I mean, that's a sentence I would want left in there, because sometimes you think, how am I going to work in this word? But that totally worked. Like,
Well, thank you.
very good. Mhm.
Appreciate
I
that.
love. You probably heard me go. I loved the twinkling of a firefly because this time of year in Michigan, it is just. And where I live, I know you guys never been here in the evening, but we have a whole field behind us of like a farmer owns it, and we own an acre. So it's just like at night you go out on our back deck and it's just like glitter everywhere. And
I love that.
this time of year is so beautiful in Michigan. So
I was driving my son out to Howell Wednesday night, and it was almost dark, and I hit one with the windshield of my car,
Oh,
and so there was this little glowing streak on my windshield.
So you hit it faster than it could light up. Like
It
Oh,
was lit up
man.
when I hit it. And
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
hilarious.
we've done that as well too. So
Poor lightning bug.
yeah, poor people.
Oh. All right, I gotta get back to my outline here.
All right. Looks like we're out of time and can't do the accountability corner. So
No, we have
well,
8
what a bummer.
minutes.
I know.
Yeah.
2 minutes
Just
each.
kidding.
Oh, that makes 2 minutes a piece. So
Okay. All right. Well, then let's just get started. So let's see. Jamie, let's go counterclockwise.
Well, okay. So I have like good news and bad news. So the bad news is I've been really seriously in a funk for like ever, and I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to write. I don't want to promote. I don't want to. And so I'm really not comfortable with this concept of like a muse. But it's so funny because my friend Joy, one time when I was going through a spell like this, she's just like, well, how can you force yourself to be creative like that? And blah, 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 blah. And kind of was giving me this out of an artistic temperament. And I really can't, it either has to be that my artistic temperament is having a tantrum, or that I just frankly am, maybe I battle depression. I don't know, because it's not the only thing that I lose interest in when I get like this. But the good news is last night, or whatever you want to say, I did, whatever has to happen to unlocked. And I did do a bunch of what I said I was going to do. So I had said that I would get through editing 4 chapters of my Callahan Caper. And I know for sure I got through 2. And then, so the reason I can't say I did 4 is because I'm like, does this need to be 2 chapters? Does this need to be 1 chapter? How long should a chapter be? And I did all of that kind of garbage for a while, but I did make some progress this week. So I'm very happy to report that things have kind of unblocked. So I'm very excited, and hopefully the season of whatever is over and I can continue to work. So I'm going to make it a goal to know that I can say 2 chapters again next Friday, because I'm going to have to, I don't know, talk to you all about chapter lengths or just whatever. And a lot of that is going to be contingent upon, I've told you I have these decisions to make. Minor character out of there. So then it's going to change the length of the book and how long a chapter should be, blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line is 2 chapters for next week by Friday.
Awesome.
Good. And just so you know, even if you get bored of writing, decide to quit, we're not letting you. You have way too much talent, and it's not going to happen.
That's
got to
very
know what
sweet.
happens at the end of the stories.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I know. Right.
Totally selfish in this, just so you
We'll
know.
take a road
Yeah,
trip to
absolutely.
Florida and beat you up.
Yeah.
I'm totally in for a road trip.
Oh, you
Yeah, me
poor
too.
babies. I'm sure you'll wait until it's like a little bit cold. And then you'll be like, I've had enough of Jamie's pet attitude. We need to go to Florida.
Right.
Yeah, we're not sick of you when it's nice here.
Just in time for Christmas.
Has she been
Mhm.
eavesdropping on us?
Mhm.
Okay, Tina, tell us what's going on.
Well, I finished a section that I was working on, the editing, that I thought I was never going to get done.
Yay.
And I finished it, and it felt really good. And so then I just didn't do anything yesterday. I finished on Wednesday, and it was just such a grueling it was this whole chapter that was, I just thought, but it needed to be there. I couldn't just cut it out. It needed to be there. So I had to do the work. And I'm just happy that it's over and I can move on to the next dilemma. So that's my goal for next week, is to work on this whole section of where Angelica is traveling through the wilderness. And I'm going to have to do a lot of cutting and deciding what I need to keep. And I don't know, maybe the whole journey is just going to be cut. I don't know at this point. So I have a lot of hard decisions to make next week. But I do know that she's not going to run into a moose, a bear, and a lynx all in the same chapter.
Awfully kind of you.
Sounds like the beginning of a joke.
Right.
Yeah, right.
A moose, a bear, and a lynx walk into a chapter.
Yeah.
Today is National Tell a Joke Day, so.
Oh,
All right. I'll have to think of a punchline for that one.
So, Tina, do you need anything from us to keep you on track, or are you going to do it?
No, I just need to show up for office hours and do the work. Button
All right.
chair.
All right. Well, then, Jennifer, what about
All
you?
right. I failed miserably this week. I had such high hopes because I was so into the story. I thought I'm going to get 4 chapters edited. Well, I keep forgetting that these chapters are like, some of them are going to be like complete rewrites. And the first chapter I hit was, I all of a sudden realized this needs to be from Will's perspective, not Phoebe's perspective. And it's so much better. And I made it halfway through that chapter all week long. I worked on it. And it's painful to do it, but it's going to be better, right? So I said that I was going to have 4 chapters edited. Not even close. I got half a chapter edited. But in my defense, we also had some tech things we had to figure out. I spent a lot of time figuring out how we were actually broadcasting today. And I spent a lot of time, I don't know if I've shared explicitly that I have a loved one that has been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so I have another doctor's appointment with her on Monday that I have to take her to a specialist. And so next week, I have to have a better goal. 4 is outrageous. So by next Friday, I will have finished the chapter that I'm done. It'll be a rewritten chapter, and do 1 more chapter, as well as I will have fixed my email sequence. We're going to talk about that next week, but I realized as we were outlining our email sequence episode that I have not touched mine. We went and looked at it, and I didn't even have any buy links in there. So people have been joining my newsletter, downloading my freebie, and there's been no way for them to go to the book to buy the next book. And I was
Which is like the point of it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes, because I did my email newsletter way back before I had even published the first book, which is the freebie. I was giving away the freebie before I published it. So yeah, so that's my goal. A chapter and a half by next week, and I'll have my email sequence fixed so that when we talk about next week, I can actually talk with some a little bit of authority, that I know what I'm doing.
Do you have a buy link in the back of the freebie?
I do. So that helps. That does help. But when after they've read the book and then they get we're going to talk about sequence later, they were getting these subsequent emails from me, and there should be buy links in that too, because people never buy well, I shouldn't say never, but seldom buy the very first time they see the link. So
that's usually if I'm going to buy the next one, it's at the end of the book when I want to know.
Right.
And I just without even thinking, do I have the money? Just okay, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Before you go, Rhonda, Robin says for her accountability, she will have a second round of edits done and sent to second betas. Oh, she
All
does like
right.
more than one group of betas.
How did
so
she
okay.
do with her goals from last week?
Oh,
I
yeah,
would
she
like for
didn't
her to chime in there. What were her goals and how did she do with them?
So you go ahead, Rhonda. When you're done, we'll check in with Robin.
Okay, well, my goals were very light last week. It was only half an hour of one book and half an hour of my fiction, half an hour on my nonfiction, and I didn't do a single day of it. And I'm telling you right now, I'm totally unrepentant. I needed this sabbatical. It was a girls' trip. It was my mom, my two daughters, my two cousins, and my aunt, and well, my cousin's new husband was there too, but he was a driver. And
I
so
thought you were
anyway,
going to say he's kind of girly. I was totally waiting for you to say that. That's hilarious.
no. But anyway, it was
Not.
yeah. So it was wonderful, and I needed it, and it was my birthday week too. Just one portion of my birthday month, and so it was just great. And I really do not feel bad about not meeting any of those goals because I really needed the week off because I put a lot of pressure on myself with some new things this year, and I'm ready to get going this week. So, my goals for this week coming up are office hours every day except for Wednesday, and working on Z. I can't give you a definite.
What's the
Saying
long-term goal for publishing that nonfiction? Because it seems like it's so close. What's the goal there?
It really is. Maybe that should be my goal for week of just getting it all wrapped up because it is just kind of hanging over my head.
Mhm.
You're right, Jamie. All right, so that's my goal is just to get back to it and find out exactly what needs to be done to get it published.
Mhm.
So
So
I'd
you'll
like
be
to
able to
say
give us a report on Friday about
a
where
report
that
on
is.
Friday about that. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
Okay.
so Robin checked back in. She said that last week her goal was first round of edits, and I should have that finished today to send to first betas. So
Awesome.
that's interesting. So you are sending out to the first betas, and then your goal for next week is second round of edits. So you're expecting to get from your betas enough time to do the second round of edits. So I'm interested to see how that works for you because my experience with editing is a much slower with someone as an editor or betas is much slower. So that's
Yeah,
cool.
and
She made the comment that she does two groups because mostly her 5 friends aren't all available at the same time.
Right.
Well, and we want those names of those 5 friends who will turn something around fast enough that you can
Yeah, send us
name
names,
them. Yes, and send them our way.
addresses, social
Yeah.
security number.
Mhm.
I don't know what you're trying to do, Christina.
I watch
but-
too much British crime TV.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It was like-
All right. Well, if nobody else has anything to say, this would be the end of our podcast. All right. Well, so we're at the end. So until next week, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ.
Bye.
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.